Hello again. So here we're going to dive into our second POC for how we could store application data within one of the browser's default storage synchronization features. And last time we looked at the password manager, and this time we're going to be looking instead at bookmarks. So if you saw the last video, password managers, lots of caveats to get that working, lots of interaction required. As a POC, great, very novel and interesting, but not something that we'd realistically want to use. I'm a bit more hopeful about this one. So let's see how it works. So again, we've got our data here, our to-do board with loads and loads of data, our secret layer setup, very important stuff. But we're not going to have access to this on a different device. So we want to shovel all this data inside bookmarks. Let the browser synchronize that for us across different installs, different devices, and then see if it's possible to regurgitate it out nice and easily so that we can create a somewhat seamless interaction for letting our data travel with us, which would be nice. So again, our input data is pulled directly from local storage from the same domain, kanban.dog. And if we change our board state here, that's immediately reflected. And we're going to do the same thing we did with passwords. We're going to break this down into chunks that we think are suitable to fit within the lengths of bookmarks. That's a little bit different between browsers. Apparently in Safari, bookmarks can go up to 80,000 characters. I haven't actually tested that yet, but apparently that's accurate. Here in Edge, it's just a little bit over 2,000. And with 3,625 characters on this one, I think for whatever reason, we've decided to chunk it up into blocks of 1,000 here. So each one of these chunks, or sorry, each one of these links has a parameter in it for the chunk. So this one, if you can see, very small at the bottom, I'll blow that up. But it says chunk one parameter, and then the value is the first segment of this payload, or the stringified JSON. Second one says chunk two, chunk three, chunk four. And then what we do as well is we just add a special character to the end of the final chunk, just so that we can help identify that we've been able to capture all of the chunks correctly in the later stage. So we've got all of our data here in links, so let's just start bookmarking them. So that was quite a lot of data actually to store in 4 drags. It wasn't the best experience, but that's 3,500 characters in a few seconds transferred directly into the browser. And then let's quietly confidently, remove all data again from our board and take it back to that default state where we just have the default board. So our data is now lost, and that simulates being on a different device where our data isn't accessible to us, but we do have it synchronized within bookmarks. So let's reload this and we can see the default board state again. And the trick to this one is we're actually going to set another local storage item, a read mode flag, and we're going to set that to on. And when read mode is on, and obviously that state is available to any other tabs or windows on kanban.dog, they can all read the same local storage value. So they'd all know that read mode is on. And when read mode is on, this proof of concept page will grab any parameter that looks like it's a chunk, and it will commit that to local storage. So it'll see that, if I open the first bookmark link, it will see that that has a parameter called chunk1, and it will create a key value pair in local storage called chunk1 with the value of that chunk1. So then, depending on how long your data is, you're going to have that many items in your local storage. So let's turn on read mode. And then it's simply a case of being able to open up all the bookmarks, because then all of those items will get committed to local storage. The page will then be able to reconstruct them from all of those items, and then hopefully we can push that back into our Kanban board. So what makes this a little bit easier of an interaction is you can right click and open all bookmarks in a single group, so you don't have to open them all individually. And you don't actually have to open the pages or go to these tabs. The second that they were instantiated, the data was read from them, and the specific chunks were written to local storage. And again, we can actually, somewhat helpfully these days, close all these tabs with a single click, getting rid of the group. Turn read mode off, and then check what we've collected. So chunk 1, 2, 3, and 4 have all been properly committed to local storage. And this PoC is fairly confident that we've got all the data. It can see that we've got the stop character at the end of the last chunk, and it can see that there's no gaps in chunks here. So we haven't, for example, got 1, 3, and 4, but not 2. So knowing that, here's our output data, all nice and reconstructed for us, but not shown yet in our Kanban board state. So let's commit that back to the boards and reload. So that is the second method for how you could store arbitrary data, and again in this case app data, but this time within bookmarks. And I actually feel like this is an interesting option because a lot of this is obviously to do with debugging, the fact that we're looking at the chunks we've received, the fact that we're looking at some data status, we didn't really need to see this. It all really boiled down to just enabling read mode, and you could probably intelligently do that. The only action really required from the user is to commit the bookmarks to a folder, open that folder, and then close it all again, or open that selection of bookmarks as a group and then close that group again. So you could actually store a healthy amount of data here within bookmarks, apparently, particularly if you're using Safari. Again, would we want to do it in a production app? Possibly. I'm genuinely thinking about adding this as a feature into Kanban Dog. So I'll leave it there and I'll let you think, how this interaction could be improved for the user. And hopefully that was interesting.